Your hard-earned cash. Everyone wants a piece of it. With Old Mutual Invest's tax-free plan, you can invest up to 33,000 Rand a year and you won't be taxed on any growth your investment makes. What's more, you can earn 8.6% interest tax-free in our maximized interest fund up until 31 March 2018. For more info or to open an account online in minutes, visit taxfreeplan.co.za. Today's the day. Get great financial advice. Do great things. Old Mutual is a licensed financial services provider. Visit taxfreeplan.co.za for terms and conditions.
Warren Ingram from Galileo Capital. He's a financial advisor and a man who needs some dodgy personal habits, because anybody who finds the process of budgeting sexy needs help.
Come on. What do you mean?
Tell me why. Why you think that budgets can be sexy and possibly should be sexy, and we should certainly be promoting the fact that the lifestyle that you can achieve as a result of being budget conscious and disciplined is in itself quite sexy, frankly.
Whenever I have this conversation with a room full of people, that it's usually some kind of a talk, and I bring up this topic, you immediately see the interest start to fade very quickly, and so I start to ask questions, who likes I don't want to give names away, but who likes a fancy cup of coffee, and who likes to drive nice cars, and then you see the hands go up, and so I say, well, so if I'm going to talk to you about budgeting, do you think that means you can't have those things? And that's usually what most people think is, if you're talking about budgeting, it's all about the things that you can't have and the life you're not supposed to live, as opposed to saying, what's the most important things for me, and those could be important in terms of being family, etc., but also the things that that give you joy and motivation, and so identify those and say, well, if those are important and those are priorities in my life, then what I got to do is panel beat my budget to find a way to do those things and to enjoy those things, and that's where the sexy part comes in.
So many people live their lives believing they can't afford to do certain things. Oh, I'd love to go on a holiday to Mauritius, or I'd love to go overseas. I would love to go and see the sights of Europe, or I would like to be able to send my kids to university. But we're not that kind of family. We can't afford that.
And so, I think, it's always easy to talk about oneself in this. So I love travel. That's my thing. And so for me, the trade-off then is, I also would love to drive nice cars, but those are really expensive, especially new ones. So what I'll do is I'll drive a safe car, but it will be old. And, my last new purchase, and not a new car, but the last car I bought is a 2011 car, and so for me, I'm more than happy to do that, because every time I get in that car, I think, well, this is a car that's fully paid off, and every time I drive it, I'm not paying off a bank interest rate, and I know I can save a bit of money for a holiday, and that's the thing that excites me, and that's the thing that will keep me motivated to stick to my budget. And I think that's the situation here. And a lot of people, it might not be travel, it might be something else. And I think, so what you've got to do is say, okay, so if that's my priority, what are the trade-offs that I'm prepared to make? And I think that's really what this comes down to. It's not a case of saying, cut out all the fun. It's a case of saying, this is great, and actually, eating out every second night or every third night, is actually not such a priority for me. I can pretty much, eat anything decent, and I can cook that at home. So let me rather, cut down on the eating out and start to build up my fun fund. And so you go. And I think that's the thing that most people don't do, is they just look at everything and say, okay, well, this is a terrible exercise. It's really not inspiring. So I'm just going to, carry on living the way I was.
The mere fact that you called it an exercise has put me off immediately. Now, tell me again. Now, explain to me the simplest, least onerous way of doing this, so that it doesn't feel like hard labor and torture. Because for many people, the idea of confronting their economic reality is really hard. So, okay, take me through the easy process.
So I think the starting point is, if you're in a relationship, then with your partner, sit down and say, right, what are the things that are really important to us? And my suggestion there is, start with the things that put a smile on your face. Obviously, they need to be realistic. I'm not, if you're
Lamborghini.
Your 100 million rand mansion in Camps Bay, wonderful, but okay, not for today. So start with the things that are doable and realistic in your lives that put a smile on your face, and those need to go, near the top of the list, along with food and and family obligations. But beyond that, then look at the things and say, what's not so important to us. And the way I think that the easiest way to do this is actually go through your bank statements, and that's easy to draw, and just go through them. And so if you spend on a credit card or on a current account, debit card, or whatever the deal is, actually look at those things and say, let's just get a feel for what it is that we spend our money on at the moment, and then write down the ones that are important and are valuable, and all the ones that are not important and not priority for you, put those in a different column. And very quickly, if you do that for a 2 or 3 month period, you get a really good idea of how you spend your money. And actually, for a lot of the time, especially with couples, they start to go, wow, we didn't realize we spent so much on takeaways or whatever the deal is. And actually, that's it's probably not good food for us. And why don't we just cook some meals at home every now and then? And so they start to find a way to jointly prioritize the things that are not important and actually put those on the back burner and not spend money on them. And start to set some money aside for the fun thing. So I think the critical thing here is don't start with a blank piece of paper where you say, we should only spend $100 a month on entertainment, because if you currently spend $2,000 a month on entertainment, there's just absolutely no way on a sustainable basis you're going to go from 2,000 to 100 if that's an important priority for you. So I think start out with what it is today. And then to cut costs on a reasonable basis, do the priority thing to say, okay, fine. So these things, we spend money on them because it's kind of mindless. We got into a bad habit and we just do it, and you were talking about exercise. So if you've got a gym membership that you've been paying for the last 4 years and you've been in gym, 4 years ago.
Stop pretending.
Stop pretending. It's over,
But that's where it's so healthy, because it does also reveal to you where you've got the debit orders that you'd forgotten even existed. And that you simply pay off because that's just part and parcel of your household expenses. I bet you for many people, they could find a couple of $100 that they could do without not even notice.
And I think if you do an exercise like this once a year, what's interesting is you start to also to focus a bit more. So a lot of the time now it's about I just look at my apps once a year, and my, I don't want to punt them, but the apps that I just buy kind of mindlessly because something looks interesting. There was one good article, one piece of nice music, or whatever the deal is, and suddenly before I know it, I've got sort of 3 TV streaming services, etc., etc. I don't use any of them. And so that's, it's crazy. But if I go through that exercise once a year, it becomes a thing of just saying, hang on, why have I got all these things? Let's cut them. I don't use them. It's a bit like clothes in your cupboard that you haven't used, and clear them out. And this one saves you money immediately. And I don't think you really feel pain because it's stuff that you just don't use.
Yeah. And you did say that you should sit down together and then over a 3-month period look at your expenditure. Does it make any difference if you take the last 3 months bank statements and do a deep dive into those and make decisions based on that? Or do you start looking ahead rather than looking back?
Sorry, no, that's a great point. So actually just draw the last 3 months worth of statements and sit down together and go through them in one batch. If you have to have a bit of PT around something like this, then just get it done and get it over with.
But there's that, because also you don't want you don't want to be changing your habits as you're doing this. You don't want to be because it's not then a realistic change, I don't think, because by the end of month 1 you've already started changing your habits a bit and you start moving ahead.
Well, that's fabulous. So I would say if that works, wonderful, because it's a bit like exercise. If you sit down and develop an exercise plan, the only way that plan works is if you actually kick it into gear and do your first walk around the block. So if you start a walk around the block and while you're developing your exercise plan, that's great. That's inspiring. Yeah. But I think an exercise like this shouldn't be taking you hours. I think if you sit down and you do it, just do it on a quick spreadsheet. And keep it, and what happens then is in a year's time you go back and you say, right, these are our last 3 months worth of expenses compared to our spreadsheet, and let's just check that we're on track and where we kind of slipped here a bit, and what things have we added in that we shouldn't really be, and then you start again. So that the next year, to stick to that habit becomes a bit less painful in terms of the work that you've got to do.
Without sounding too millennialish, do we build incentives in for ourselves to say, oh, we did so well, have a donut or something along those lines?
Absolutely. I mean, that's where the goals, the fun things are that you've got to put in your budget kick in. So for me, that holiday fund, I want to watch it growing. So I set aside money every month, it goes into that holiday fund, and that becomes the reward for me, because then I know that's that's my kind of benchmark that I'm working towards. For those that really love food, if you're a foodie or you really love your coffee, then every week, if you've hit your weekly spending goal, if that's how you want to work, you reward yourself. And I don't think that's kind of being a millennial specifically. I think that's human nature. We love rewards. We love to give ourselves short-term goals that we can achieve, and then get something for that.
But
and
you have to be honest about it as well, though, Warren, because there's some people, and present company accepted, who at the end of a really tough week where they've missed their goals, they've missed the targets, but they feel they deserve a reward for trying anyway, and then it all falls apart. Have you got to be quite tough on yourself in this process?
Yeah, I think you do, and I think that's why, to me, I love the idea of doing it with I know we're talking about fitness now, but a training partner,
Sure.
So you should have a budgeting partner. So if you are in a relationship, that's ideal to try and hold each other to account. If you're not, then find someone that you can, that you trust to say, let's do this exercise, independently, but kind of hold each other to account, so that, when you do start, slipping a bit, you can, pick up the phone to your mate and say, your budgeting mate, to say, let's go and have a water.
From a tap.
From a tap, yeah.
This excludes Cape Townians, though. You have to find some other reward system for Cape Townians. But Warren Ingram, thank you. Budgeting, not as unsexy as I thought. You can build in some pretty nice ways of doing it. Warren Ingram on budgeting and how to make it sexy. He's a personal financial advisor. He's an executive director at Galileo Capital.